Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is FromSoftware's latest melee-focused action game, where you take on the role of a shinobi swordsman known as the One-Armed Wolf. Sekiro is a name derived from that description, although almost no one calls him that, so neither will I. And the story, what little there is to be had, revolves around fulfilling the needs of your young master, who is constantly under threat as his blood can grant people, such as yourself, the power of immortality. This immortality is how the game makes sense of your revival after death, but also plays a different role in combat. To understand how, though, knowledge of how combat works is needed. Now, the standard method for dealing with enemies in these types of games is to reduce their health bars to 0, thereby killing them. But in Sekiro, the goal is instead to land a death blow. Reducing an enemy's health bar to 0 is simply one method of doing so. The other methods involve damaging an enemy's posture until they become vulnerable, or using stealth assassinations. Leaving stealth aside, the posture and the health make up the methods for death blows while in active combat, and the entirety of combat was designed around these concepts. Health is pretty straightforward. You look for gaps in your enemy's defenses and whittle them down until they have nothing left. Posture, on the other hand, is a little more complex. Posture is an enemy's capability to ward off death blows in active combat, and any action you take against an enemy will do damage to posture, whether that's attacking them while they guard, warding off their attacks against you, or even doing health damage. But where health stays drained after being inflicted, posture will regenerate as long as no one is attacking or being attacked. So on its face, just focusing on health damage would make more sense. But there are decent incentives to go after the posture bar along with the health bar, not least of which is the fact that the wolf's basic abilities and counters can inflict a lot of posture damage. The basic kit of the wolf is his step dodge, his jump, and using his trusty katana to slash his foes and block enemy attacks. Aside from the katana slash, all his other basic moves are meant to keep you safe from harm, and if used correctly, will instead inflict posture damage upon the enemy. Blocking is your basic method of stopping enemy damage, and aside from certain unique enemy attacks, will block anything. But if it's posture damage you want, then you need to time your blocks, just as an attack lands, to instead do a deflection. This will reduce posture damage to you, damage enemies' posture, and can also stop unblockable thrust attacks, making it a very useful skill to master, especially since enemies will counter attacks on them with attacks of their own, leaving little room for evasion. Speaking of, the step dodge will be the primary way to evade attacks. The step dodge does have a few frames of invincibility after using it, but the window is so small that the dodge is better suited to getting physically away from attacks rather than try to dash through them. And as far as posture damage goes, this dodge can help you avoid powerful downward slashes and grapple attacks, then set you up to hit opponents from their blind spot. And if the first available skill has been purchased, you can use the step dodge, right as you're about to be hit by a thrust attack, to pull off a Mikiri counter, where instead of step dodging away, you step on the enemy's weapon, dealing massive posture damage, more so than you could ever get from deflecting a thrust. And for the jump, you can get a lot more distance away from your target than you could with a step dodge, but without the invincibility. You can also avoid unblockable leg sweep attacks by jumping over them, and if you position yourself atop an enemy during these sweep attacks, then you can use a second jump to bounce off their heads, resulting in posture damage. So, with all 4 of the basic moves capable of doing posture damage, and having 3 of those be useful in staying alive, it's hard to see why you'd only focus on health instead of taking full advantage of what you can do. But no matter which you decide on, you can push that strategy further by using the other 2 combat capabilities the wolf has, which are the various temp use gadgets and your chosen combat art, both of which can be improved and expanded on the further you progress in the game. The gadgets, which are tucked away in your prosthetic arm, have limited usage and are primarily for exploiting weaknesses or inflicting status effects, the effectiveness of either depending on what enemy or boss you're currently fighting. Take the shuriken launcher, which does minor damage, good only as a weapon against the very weak, but can have increased effects when done on airborne enemies, increasing the health and posture damage it inflicts, and if timed correctly, can send those airborne enemies crashing to the ground along with the damage benefits. And these types of advantages go for the other gadgets as well, such as the spear giving you a long-range thrust for punishing retreating foes while also being able to pull off large enemies' armor, or the flame vent letting you set enemies ablaze, doing health damage and preventing posture regeneration while also terrifying those with red eyes. Finding and exploiting these weaknesses might take a little experimentation, but the results will be worth it. The same can be said about the combat arts, which explore the other methods of attack beyond your basic slash and thrust moves, such as a forward jump slice that can help you close gaps, or a series of punches you can chain at the end of your sword slash, or a quick draw double slice that can damage enemies through blocks. You have a bit more freedom in choosing combat arts than you do gadgets, since any combat art can be effective, it's just finding the right time to use it to have the greatest effect, which again is dependent on who you're fighting and what they're capable of. On that note, there are a wide range of enemies in this game, each one with a unique combat style ranging from those with rapid flurries of attacks to those with big heavy weapons to agile foes that weave ranged attacks in with their melee strikes. Some even using piercing magics or weapons imbued with status effects that accumulate on you even while blocking, with both the mid-bosses and the major bosses being just as varied in their design, but testing your skill at doing health and posture damage more so than any normal enemy. But in a game about landing death blows, the enemies themselves don't really have such a thing to do on you. Certain bosses do have high damage attacks they save until they break your posture, but even then it's not a guaranteed kill. So instead, aside from some of the quirky enemies like geckos, all enemies have the potential to kill you within seconds. In some ways, Dark Souls was like this, but not quite to the same extent, as you had ways to bolster your health and defense if such things became a problem. Whereas in Sekiro, all health upgrades are reliant on defeating mid-bosses or looting hidden treasures as you progress through each area, limiting the way you can withstand damage. So instead, Sekiro provides a different way to manage these deaths by utilizing the immortality that the wolf has by giving you the power to resurrect instead of being dumped at the last save idol. This resurrection power can be seen as one-shot protection to return to the battle after being unfortunately caught in a flurry of attacks or getting shredded whilst in the middle of healing, and could be seen as a similar element to the way the toughness of bosses is determined by the number of death blows they need before they stay down. And like them, you only have a few uses before you stay down, and once you do, expect some penalties. This is a FromSoftware game after all. Death penalties are handled harshly but reasonable. When you die, you lose both half your money and half your experience points. Money being used to buy useful items and upgrading your gadgets, and experience points are needed to upgrade skills and combat arts. On the harsher side of things, there is no way to retrieve what was lost. Once you die, it's gone. On occasion, through an RNG system called Unseen Aid, this loss is prevented, but it's not something that should be relied on, and the more you die, the less chance this has of happening as your deaths start to spread illness around, and whoever is aiding you is really not into that. You can fix this later in the game, but as the system is chance-based, it'll be more of an emotional fix rather than a way to actually avoid the penalties. On the fairer side of things, the money you earn can be changed into permanent money bags at shopkeepers, at a limit of course, and while half your experience points are lost on death, these experience points are converted into skill points after completing an experience bar. These skill points are never lost, so you're really only losing your current progress, not losing what you have as a whole. But if you'd rather not deal with any of that, then you're going to want to fight smart, keep healed up, and make things as advantageous to yourself as possible. And while not applicable to arena boss fights, stealth is a significant way to do so. For the record, Sekiro is not a stealth game, so if you plan to go around all the explorable areas assassinating everyone, prepare to be disappointed. Some locations do have that option available, but the point of stealth is less about clearing an area and more about separating and reducing the amount of troublesome enemies, like ranged users, so that you can fight opponents one-on-one, because trying to fight a group of enemies is near impossible. Stealth kills also come with the ability to do ninjutsu afterwards, which can help when dealing with scenarios where a stealth kill on one enemy will alert others by allowing you to make blood smoke to chain assassinate, or to make an enemy or puppet that will help divert enemy focus, or make your sword blade longer and pierce, so that swings hit multiple enemies. These ninjutsu are limited use, same as the prosthetic gadgets, so make sure you know how and where you want to use them to have the greatest impact. As for how stealth actually works, Sekiro employs both sight and sound to determine if an enemy detects you. So crouching can help dampen your footfalls, and staying behind enemies or in tall grass will help hide you from view. Just as well, you can hang from ledges, hug the walls of a building, or even take advantage of the grappling feature to hide above enemies. Be wary of environment objects though. Walking through or breaking them, and even assassinating enemies, creates sound that will alert anyone in the vicinity. And ranged users tend to have better eyesight than most, so avoid their gazes or take them out first when entering a new area. Not that all areas have the potential for stealth. While some have lots of buildings to traverse over or are filled with nature, having bushes and trees to take advantage of, others are clustered indoors or involve traversing hazardous cliffs with little to hide behind. But that's part of the fun, I suppose, to adapt to each individual location and deal with the array of challenges set before you. These areas are also visually distinctive, though they still carry that Dark Soulsian style FromSoftware is known for, but with a lighter feel since the environments are themed to Japan and not the dilapidated fictional world the Souls series focuses on. The music takes a similar route, with songs having more traditional Japanese-sounding themes. As for any major downsides, I would say Sekiro's biggest problem is the camera, which is used fine sitting behind your character, but lining up the camera is necessary to choose grapple points, line up assassinations, pick up items, and most importantly, stay locked on to enemies so you can fight them properly, as shifting away from them even a little will prevent blocks from working and hits from connecting. And throughout the game, I found myself running into problems with all of these. Where there are multiple grapple points, lining up the one you want can end up an unnecessary struggle, or having to shift the camera around when I know I'm standing right on top of an item, or jumping off a roof to get a surprise plunge attack, but not getting the camera right, so I just end up falling next to them. The enemy lock-on will break if your camera gets too close to a wall, or if enemies move behind objects for a few seconds, and in some fights this is a major problem, where my fight with the camera ends up being a bigger struggle than the opponent I'm locked in life or death combat with. Other than that, some nuisances might be the fact that you can't rebind certain actions, like combat arts, which activate by using both the block and the attack buttons at the same time. And in a game where you are constantly shifting from attacks to blocks, that's just asking for trouble. Or the occasional bullshit hitbox on an enemy's attack where you're pretty sure you got out of the way in time, but somehow didn't. These problems are thankfully situational and aren't a constant problem, which is good since Sekiro is a decent game. It still has the difficulty curve that FromSoftware is known for, but manages not to rehash the combat while also providing levels that evolve differently thanks to the verticality, and provide new gameplay in a way that the Souls series hasn't been able. The boss fights still come out as the best of what the game has to offer by letting combat be the focus in radically different fights, and while your only weapon is a katana this time around, the whole point is to master that katana, just like so many of the sword masters you're pitted against. And master it you can. In the Souls series, beating a boss without taking damage was seen as unrealistic. But in Sekiro, all the tools to do so are available to you, and thanks to certain design choices, you're led straight into those tools, so that even someone like me can take down a boss in one fell swoop.